Hello and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and we've got an exciting episode in store for you today. Before we get started, don't forget to check us out at themfgconnector.com to stay up to date on all things manufacturing and culture. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for all the latest updates. And if you love solutions to real world manufacturing challenges, be sure to check out our other show, The Manufacturing Connector, on YouTube. It's perfect for anyone who loves seeing tech driven solutions in action. Now, let's talk about today's guest. Joining us is someone who's been walking the walk in manufacturing for over 30 years, Vince Sassano. Vince is the CEO of Strategic Performance Company, Inc. Vince's story starts on the factory floor, navigating the complexities of operations, systems integration, and leadership. What makes Vince's journey so fascinating is the way he's embraced every twist and turn in the industry, from the analog days to the digital age. Over the years, he's seen firsthand how the culture of manufacturing has evolved, and he's been a key player in shaping that transformation. Whether it's navigating new technologies or building a team that thrives in the fast paced, ever changing world of manufacturing, Vince has always focused on the people behind the machines and processes. He's a firm believer in empowering the frontline workers and creating a culture where everyone plays a role in success. So, in today's episode, we're going to unpack his journey, how he got started, the lessons he's learned along the way, and how those experiences have shaped the leader he is today. This one is going to be filled with insights for anyone passionate about building a strong, resilient culture in manufacturing. Let's dive into it. Hello, Vince Sassano. Welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Jim. Thanks for having us on. More than excited to be able to share a lot of experiences and stories. And really, I hope there's something that we talk about that everybody can relate to, because manufacturing as an industry is pretty wide. It's got a lot of different moving parts to it. And to just say you're in manufacturing doesn't even come close to describing how everybody's journey is a little bit different, day to day, on the floor, up in management. It's really unique. So I've had the privilege for the last 30 years of being involved in a variety of different manufacturing industries and processes, and hopefully we can get into some of the more insightful and maybe funnier stories of how things have actually been able to improve prior to things not being so good. So that's the only way you improve, is if things are lousy and then you improve them. You don't take something that's running great and then just be like, oh, let's break it so we can make it better. It doesn't work.
Absolutely. That way. You got to fail fast, but you got to learn from those failures and move on to the next one, because the next one ultimately is coming, right? And yeah. I love what you said, how you said that, Vince, because there are so many different facets to manufacturing, so many different verticals, so many different roles and responsibilities. And your career is amazing. So I want the listeners to hear, like I ask all of my guests to start the conversation, how did you get started in this industry? Tell us your story. What drew you to the industry, and how'd you get to where you are today?
Love to. So as a young person growing up, I was always drawn to the math and the science aspects of education. Computers in the 80s and the 70s and 80s really started, to take hold. I remember our first family computer was a famous, TRS-80 from Radio Shack, effectively known as the Trash 80, or I should say affectionately known as the Trash 80. And it came with basic programming, and I got to write some programs. I would store them on a cassette tape. My brother actually taught himself some programming on that. There were these game cartridges we could put in. and it was a lot of money back then. It was $300. I
Wow.
mean, you should have heard my dad go, "What are you talking about?" And my mom just made it work in the budget, and lo and behold, we ended up with this computer, and so that kind of got it started. Really not too much. I was involved in high school with the computer club to some extent. I also was doing sports. I played golf. Ran cross country. I played football in junior high. But we had a Hewlett Packard computer, one computer for the whole high school, one computer,
Wow.
and there was only two ways to enter in your program. It was through cards, the punch cards, or it had an LED display of one line,
Wow.
and that was it. And so you couldn't write very long programs, but at least gave it gave people the idea of what is involved in programming. Decided to major in computer engineering at college. Went to Iowa State University,
Okay.
Cyclone
Cyclones? Yeah,
at St.
go
Ames,
Cyclones. Yeah.
not the other school. And who we beat, by the way, last week at
You did?
home.
Yeah.
Okay, by 1 point. We'll take it.
Hey, a W's a W, Vince.
W's and W, exactly. And so in college, I remember a lot of my courses were on the punch cards. And you had to write your program. You had to punch them out. I don't even think they had these like typing machines where you would put a blank card in. You'd buy a stack of blank cards from the bookstore. You would put them in. You would type in your one line. It would put it into punch code. And then that was your one line of your 20 or
Wow.
50 or 100 line program. Then you had to take that stack, walk it up to the operator, give him the stack. He would run it through, and then you'd have to wait about 10 minutes. And then he would call your name with your job number, and then you would get a printout of your input, your program, and your output. And from that printout, it would tell you whether your program worked or not.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is college.
Oh wow.
And then there was one semester where they started to introduce the PC. Like, ooh, personal computer. We're not on the mainframe anymore. Okay. So that was actually pretty interesting because that was our first experience with using 5¼ inch floppies,
Okay.
which, oh my gosh, what a step up from the cards.
Yeah.
You could actually edit your own program on the screen. You could save it. You could run it. It was just so much more efficient for your programming for the class
Yeah.
in order to do that. And, one of the things that I'm very proud of is that in one of my computer science classes, I got an A for variable naming. Like when
Wow.
I named a variable, it was very descriptive and everybody knew what it did rather than just, A,
Wow.
right?
That's pretty
So,
amazing.
yeah. So the technology side, I've grown up with. And I ended up working for a number of companies out of college. I was in the banking and finance industry. I was in the printing industry. My last position was as the IT director with a manufacturing company, but their manufacturing was only like one wing of what they did. They were involved in the environmental sciences and environmental engineering. And so they did a lot of testing and a lot of things like that. But needless to say, they still had, need for computers. And one of the reasons I was retained for that position was because I had previous experience with a Wang 2200.
Wow.
So I don't even know if you remember Wang as a
I do
computing
not.
company, but some people that'll resonate with because they were in the mainframe business for a long time.
Okay.
And, I had experience with working one of their mainframes, programming in BASIC and COBOL.
Wow.
So those were my two
That's
languages for
awesome.
that particular job. But in college, I was able to learn well over a dozen languages.
Wow.
So that was kind of my specialty, was understanding the different ways that people could interface with the computer from a programming standpoint and what the
Got it.
strengths and weaknesses were. So with my last position where I worked for a manufacturing company, that's when I really got involved more on the accounting side and on the ERP side. We had a lot of custom software that we had written to help us with some various processes, and I was involved in maintaining and enhancing those processes. And there was a point in time where I just decided to cut the cord, hang a shingle, and go off on my own.
Wow. That's
And
cool.
I did that for probably about a year or two, mostly offering IT services to a variety of corporations. And then I partnered up with a gentleman, and we ended up offering ERP systems to people. So it was really when we started to sell ERP systems where we got involved more heavily in the manufacturing side.
Got it.
Um, so did that for a while, sold that business to my partner and said, yeah, I don't really want to do this anymore. And really decided to focus in on the plant floor
Okay.
because we realized that in manufacturing, that's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
Because if you can't make it, you can't ship it. And
Yep.
if you can't ship it, you can't invoice it.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely.
pretty
Fair
much
enough.
the way it goes. And
Yep.
so ever since then, and that was back in 1992, we were doing the ERP system thing, and then all the way up through, I would say 2000, right around 1999, 2000 is where we decided to focus solely on the plant floor. And then ever since then, it's been the plant floor and what it needs. And then, any support departments on up the line, we're certainly well versed in understanding what they need and why. So what we've been able to do is take, a deep technological engineering experience that we have and combine that with our in-depth manufacturing operations experience as to what people need, why they need it, and what they're going to do with it, and then combine the two. And, we've been doing that ever since.
Wow. That's really cool. So when you look back into your history and your early days, what was that first job where you stepped onto the factory floor for the first time? And kind of paired with that, what were some of the early challenges that you saw in manufacturing?
Well, one of the early challenges we saw, I remember we were installing an ERP system for a customer, and the data that the ERP system was collecting was not detailed enough for the plant manager to get down what's actually happening on the plant floor.
Okay.
And we did our best to help with that, but that really wasn't it really wasn't, fitting the bill. We ended up getting involved with another customer who loved the ERP system, but they wanted to customize it a lot, specifically for that purpose. This was a paint manufacturer, and we heavily customized it, working with the vendor. We didn't create the ERP system; we were just a reseller at that point.
Okay.
But we were the go-between, helping the reseller and us and the customer really come up with some customized solutions for the plant floor, and that's really kind of where the light bulb came off, because I was thinking, well, we should probably have something that's specific to the plant floor and independent of whatever ERP or accounting system people are using. And that's, that was really the light bulb that went off for
Wow.
us to, hey, we need to get more heavily involved in that.
Awesome. So, how do you think manufacturing has evolved since you first started in the industry?
Oh, the biggest change that I've seen since the beginning is the affordability of technology has gotten so much better that it's becoming harder and harder for people to say, oh, no, we don't use technology or computers in our plant floor.
Sure.
We don't need that stuff. It's too expensive. It's too complicated. And, we just don't need it. It's getting increasingly more difficult for people to say that.
Sure. That makes
And
total sense.
yeah, so that's
Um,
really the biggest change is the affordability, which helps people like us because we now can engage in a project for somebody for $10,000 that may have previously cost 100,
wow.
or even do something for $1,000 that previously would have cost 10.
Yeah.
And so when people see the price tag of some of the things that we can engage on, they're really surprised because we tried to do our best to under promise and over deliver. And we've been doing this for 30 years, so obviously we're doing something right in keeping the phone ringing and making people happy with the end result of what we provide for them. But we can only do that because we know operations. We feel
Okay.
your pain. We know what you're talking about. We know what you're looking for. And some of the most exciting conversations that we have is with people in the operations side saying, we need this. And I go, why? That actually happened on Monday.
Okay. Tell
I
me.
was sitting with the director of operations. He manages 3 different plants for one of our customers. And we're working with them to install a little bit more of an updated real-time data collection system. And we were talking about downtime and collecting downtime and downtime codes.
Okay.
And he was like, well, why don't you just look at the industry and see what they're doing and then make your stuff do that? And I'm like, I already know what they're doing. It's just, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to work.
Right.
Technology does not come with an accuracy or an effectiveness guarantee. And a lot of people lose that in translation of, you throw out terms like digital transformation and IIoT and IOTT and whatever these acronyms are. I lose track of them all, I'm back from the days when it's like, yeah, that's the thing that does the wiki with the stuff, And the people go,
the widget.
The widget, yeah, exactly. It's the Spitzer valve. It sticks, So, we come from those days, and being able to talk that lingo is very important. So I said to the gentleman, I said, but you still have to have the person in the loop to be able to make the right choice. So I can put iPads and tablets and touch screens and all sorts of technology in front of the people on the plant floor. But in the end, that person still has to make the right choice as to what did happen or what is happening in order to make the data effective and make it trusted. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that I struggle with and that manufacturing's been struggling with since the beginning of data is what we call trust data.
Okay.
Can you trust the data? Where did it come from? Whose is it? Is it computer generated? Is it people generated? Where does it lie in that? And we help people kind of firm that up. We say, okay, you collect this data for this reason from these people. Well, that's reliable.
Yeah.
You collect this data from this machine for this reason. That's not always going to be reliable. Okay?
Got it.
Perfect example. You got one line with 7 pieces of machinery, and one piece of machinery goes down. The problem isn't always with the piece of machinery that went down. It could be upstream.
Oh.
And then the upstream machine is causing the downstream problem. But then you're reporting the downstream problem when you really ought to be reporting the upstream problem. And, thank you for what you said in the opening statement, because people on the front line live this every day, every shift, day in and day out. They know what's happening on the floor. They just don't have a voice or authority to be able to speak. So what happens is at the end of every shift, they take that knowledge with them. They walk out the door and it's gone forever. And what we do is we help people put in systems to be able to collect, capture, analyze, and utilize that data. Because if you don't catch it right at the point when it happens, let me ask you a question, Jim. Well, what'd you have for lunch yesterday?
Sandwich, cheese sandwich with avocado.
What did you have for lunch on August 12th?
Oh, man. I don't even remember where I was on August 12th. Yeah.
And that's what happens on a plant floor when something goes wrong. All of those problems walk out the door with the people that had to deal with them every day.
Yep.
Every day.
So along those lines, Vince, you talked about how, the technology's evolved. And you've talked about the frontline workers. How has the culture in this industry changed over the last 30 years that you've been involved in it?
Well, the culture has changed from, I guess, what would be called one extreme to another, which is really an old style management to a new style management. Okay. So the old style management is what we would affectionately call MBWA, which stands for management by walking around. And it has evolved and advanced to more of a data-driven management emphasis, where managers nowadays not only need to understand data, but they need to crave it. And if they don't have the right data, they need to solve that problem. Because if they don't have the right data, they don't have the right visibility. If they don't have the right visibility, they're not solving the right problems, and they're not applying their resources appropriately, whether it be maintenance or operations or IT or what have you. And so being a little less hands on the floor and a little bit more hands on with the data has been really the biggest change.
Got it. And so, I what are some of the pivotal moments that you've had in your career that have shaped your approach to leadership?
It's really been by talking with people on the plant floor and then providing them with the tools that they need that allow them to do it better. And then when that shows up in the numbers upline to management, it's just everybody gets a smile on their face.
Yeah,
Everybody thinks that it needs to be top down driven.
yeah,
That the plant manager needs to come in with an iron whip and go, this is the way we're going to do things, and you people better do it because the beatings will continue until morale improves. And yeah, that's just, you know, it, no joke, no joke. I was actually sitting in a meeting. It was a multi-plant meeting with the conglomerate, and we were getting our heads together to talk about technology and just exact topic that we were talking about.
yep,
And we were trying to get some information to be exchanged between the plants. Hey, this is how we do it. This is why we do it. And one of the managers of one of the plants said in front of 15 people, he said, I think that productivity as it relates to plant morale is overrated. And
wow,
that's exactly the response around the table. And he said this in front of his boss.
wow,
Yeah, exactly. And then we couldn't do anything except shake our heads and
yeah.
go, okay. I mean, if that's the way, you want to run the plant, then there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
It was also funny because in that same meeting, they made the decision that pretty much every piece of equipment that they had was going to have an Ethernet port.
Huh.
And I was like, okay, works for me. What are you going to do with it? Oh, we don't worry about that. Just pay the extra money for the Ethernet port. So every piece of equipment they ordered had an Ethernet port that they never used, but they had it in case they needed it.
Just in case.
And that was their idea of digital transformation at the time.
Wow.
Well, we bought an Ethernet port for each one of our machines. Aren't
So
we just
we've
automatically supposed to get better? Yes, this is real people. These are real stories. I can't make
wow.
this stuff up. I promise
No.
you, I can't make it up. I wouldn't make it up.
Well, and that's the thing, Vince, is every time you and I have talked, I end up with like cramps in my cheeks and my sides because you have some stories, man, that are just hilarious. Looking back on that your history there, are there any mentors or leaders that you had that made a lasting impact on you and how you lead?
I wouldn't say there was too many on the technology side because technology has always been ahead of the manufacturing culture. I mean, a lot of the technology that people are taking advantage of today has been around since the 80s, but to them it's a
It's new.
realization and that's fine. I would say it's more on the manufacturing side. And the one book, if I could give somebody one book to read,
Yeah.
okay, it would be this book right here. All right. It's this book called The Goal.
Okay.
We allow you Goldratt. This is a great read. It's an amazing read. And what it does is it goes through and helps people not only understand the game of productivity and efficiency, but also it teaches them how to do it themselves. That is really one of the other pillars of our organization is that we want people helping themselves get better. We don't always want the phone call saying, hey, this is what we need to do. Can you do it for us? We want to help people help themselves. And what we do is we put in systems that allow people to collect the data that they need so that they can do the analysis that they need so that they can do the projects that they need. And then when they want to get to the next level, then they call us and they say,
Got it.
okay, well, this is a little bit beyond us, a little bit beyond our IT people. Big shocker. A lot of IT departments in manufacturers do not understand operations. And it's to some extent not their fault
Right.
because they don't teach manufacturing operations in the computer science classes at college.
Well,
So,
and a lot of the shops that I walk into, Vince, under 100 employees, uh, not a whole lot of them actually have an IT department, right? They've got some outsourced
right.
vendor that they're working with. So they don't have anybody really in-house that understands their processes specifically for them. Is that an issue that you see out there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There was a point in time where you are big enough to have your own IT resources, but usually that's for general infrastructure, networking,
Okay.
Wi-Fi, PCs, that sort of thing. Very, very, very few manufacturers have their own IT development department helping
Sure.
them with operational issues. And that's kind of where we fit that gap is
Cool.
we help people get involved in the more technical aspects, but they don't really either need to hire themselves or just don't know where to go when they need a little bit higher technical expertise. I mean, the flip side of what I just told you a couple minutes ago was that you can't expect your plant operations people to know IT, right?
No.
I mean, you're not going to grab some guy off the line and say, "Hey, tell me what you think about Windows 10." You know,
Right.
what are you talking about Windows 10? I got 5 windows in my truck, and 4 of them are dirty. Okay,
Well, and
so
how many of them? Unofficial straw poll, right? Just with my experience, I think it was 96% of people that I've worked with actually have smartphones. I mean, there's still 4 to 5% that don't even have smartphones in on manufacturing lines. Is that a valid stat, do you think? I mean, that's just my experience, but
yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair. However, with one of our customers that I know specifically, only managers are allowed to carry smartphones on the floor. So
wow.
there's a certain management level, lead supervisors, operators, packers, facilities people. Don't always they're not always allowed to carry a cell phone.
Yeah,
Some of it is for safety reasons. You don't want
sure.
some guy, surfing the net and he misses something, and he sticks his hand in something and gets chopped off because he wasn't looking.
Right.
So there's a safety concern there as well. But most people do have their own personal smartphones. I haven't run across anybody that doesn't have their own personal smartphones. Um,
I was
but
just
they're
in a
not
shop.
using but they're not using that on the plant floor for business reasons.
Sure.
So
Well, I was just in a shop last week, 30-person shop. Two people did not have, or this week, sorry, it's been a long week. 30-person shop, two people do not have smartphones. Neither one of them even have email addresses because they are that worried about, they're of a certain age, right?
right.
And I don't have to worry about them listening to this because they don't know what podcasts are, probably, right? But uh, they're just that concerned about information and data and government tracking them and things of that nature that they have a old really dumb, they both had really dumb old brick phones and think that they're completely safe because of that. It's wild to me.
Yeah, I mean it's okay. I mean my answer to the whole government listening thing is just don't say anything that you shouldn't say. I mean it's kind of simple
Right.
if you think about it. You know, I
I
mean,
always just preface
yeah,
my
yeah.
conversations by saying between you and me and whatever FBI agent's listening to
Sure,
me right now,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Shout out to my own personal FBI agent.
yeah.
Here's to
I
you.
use that joke all the time when I'm on the phone with friends. When they start to get a little bit, talky on a particular topic, I go, "Could you say that again for the FBI?" You know, and they go, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Hey, you never know." And it really, I wouldn't say it's scary, but for me, it's funny. But for some people, it might be scary because I'm a computer engineer. I know what's possible,
Sure.
and I know what's not possible. Did you ever watch the TV show 24?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I mean, I would sit there sometimes and laugh my ass off. When one of the tech people could get into the gas company's meter on 305 Main Street in about 10 seconds. I'll be like,
Absolutely.
that ain't gonna happen never. That couldn't happen today. Okay. I would just be like, yeah, that can't. But, I'm sitting here talking and I've got my smartphone with me. I know my smartphone is listening right now
Oh, absolutely.
because it's listening because of all of the marketing ad stuff that comes up. Like if I say baby diapers right now, I guarantee you in 20 minutes my phone's going to pop up with an ad for baby diapers that are on sale.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's just the world we live in now. Is
Absolutely.
is is that, and we get so inundated with a lot of data. I can completely understand why manufacturing just does not want to have to deal with that stuff. They just want to go in, do their work, get their stuff out the door, and go home. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
The problem ensues when you get into issues like growth, capacity planning, turnover, that sort of thing. You lose a couple of key players. I mean, if you have an operator that you've had for 25 years and then he retires, all that knowledge goes with him
Absolutely.
unless you do something to keep it in your
Yeah.
organization. And one of the things that one of our systems does is it helps collect all that information, stores it by operator, so
Okay.
that 2, 3, 5 years down the road, if they want to go back and look at topics or issues or things, they can, and they can go back and look at the notes and say, okay, well, we had this problem and this is how this person resolved it. And so people don't understand that how you run as an operation company is intellectual property.
Got
And
it.
it's your intellectual property, but they're not treating it like intellectual property. They're
Yeah.
basically treating it like a gum wrapper. It wraps the piece of gum, and then you eat the gum, and then you throw away the wrapper, and then eventually you throw away the gum.
So how can manufacturers go about approach without diving into, and full transparency, everybody watching or listening, Vince and I are going to do a manufacturing connector episode where he's going to really dive into the solution. So I don't want to do that here, but how can manufacturers approach engaging and empowering the employees a little bit more to change that culture on the shop floor?
Well, no digital transformation should ever be undertaken unless you're trying to solve a problem. So the first thing you want to do is you want to try to look for a problem that you want to have solved. And again, we don't have enough time to get into all the details of that, but I can essentially say to you, it involves starting with a problem,
Got it.
whether it's at the lowest level or whether it's at the highest level or anywhere in between. There's got to be a problem that one person or more than one person sees and says, okay, we've got to do something about this. And in today's world, I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, it can be solved with digital technology. And then the other 2 times, it probably can be solved with analog technology or a conversation. How about that? Communication.
Even better. Yeah,
Operations
even
techs
better.
talking to maintenance and
Yeah.
maintenance going, hey, that makes sense. I mean, wouldn't that be like a, wow, they're not fighting. They're not sitting there going, you broke it. Well, you don't know how to run it. Well, you
Yeah.
don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I got more stories on that. But
Oh, tell us one. I'm all about some Vince stories right now. Let's go.
yeah, one of the things that we found is that if your maintenance people and your operations people can speak the same language, things go a lot smoother. And one area in which we've been able to make a lot of progress in that is really downtime recognition.
Oh.
When you have a problem, there needs to be a conversation. Is it mechanical? Is it equipment related? Is it people related? Exactly why is this machine down, and what should we tell the system what actually happened? And
Okay.
it's that communication that happens between all the various department members that makes that data collection effective, and it makes it trusted. It's not a guess. And so that really cuts down on the friction, and it encourages cooperation. And that's part of the culture change that we help people with. But the culture change really has to be system driven, because here's the way it works. And this is very typical of the way this country has been built. All right. This country has been built on one particular statute that came from Britain, actually came from Roman times, but it's gone through world history, called rule of law. Okay. People will follow the law quicker and easier than they will follow another human being, because they're like, I'm not going to listen to that guy. He's an idiot. Yeah, but he might be right. Yeah, but he's an idiot. I ain't listening to him. Okay. Yeah, but he's right. No, forget that. He's an idiot. Okay. However, if you say, well, the law says this, people go, oh, okay, I'll do it.
Got it.
So when it comes to on the plant floor, if you have a system that says, okay, here is your downtime code list, you got to pick one of these 5, people will go, all right, I think it's number 3 over here. Hey, what do you think, Mr. Maintenance guy? Yeah, I think it's a number 3, but let's notate this in the comments and we'll put that in the system and then everybody's happy. Okay. If you go to them and say, well, just write down what happened, you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
Because that's
Right.
just, you have
too many variables.
Well, you got to put some boundaries on,
Sure.
the data that you're collecting and who you're collecting it from, because the system requires it. Okay. One of the systems, that we install people, we don't let them put in a negative efficiency. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Jim, you made -5 units this shift. Oh, really? You went to the warehouse and you broke some of them? Is that how that works? And we're very, very tight on letting people put in efficiencies over 100. Because if you're 300% efficient, well, then that means your target's wrong.
Absolutely.
You
You have to
can't be
reevaluate.
making product 3 times as fast unless there's a reason the guy turned the machine up, and you can do that in rare occasions where, stuff's not flying around and all that. But it's really getting people responsible to reporting to a system that will not only further the culture change, but it also makes it easier and smoother, because it's like, well, hey, I'm just following the system. Don't get mad at me.
Yeah.
Get mad at the computer, right? And on rare occasions, I get a phone call and I'm like, what's going on? Vince, it's your fault. And I'm like, what did I do? You put this thing in that doesn't allow me to put a whatever in the system. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's because you're not supposed to do that. Oh, and here's why you're not supposed to do that. And then I start talking operations jargon.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. I don't talk technical jargon. I talk operations jargon. Here's why you don't want to do this, and here's why. And then they go, light bulb, and it's all good. And so it's all driven from the system up, because the system becomes like a backboard. It becomes like a sounding board. It becomes something that's solid, that you can rely on, even though there's a lot of interaction with people and technology and that sort of thing. You want to make sure that people understand that it's not another person making this. It is the system. Because people take very personally, they take everything personal.
Yeah.
Especially in manufacturing.
Oh,
especially in
absolutely.
Don't piss off the guys on second shift. Okay? Don't do that. That is not good.
Yeah.
First shift guys, hey, think about the lunch. You go, hey, I'm sorry, my bad, whatever. Second shift guys, don't piss them off and then leave.
Yeah.
You'll get a phone call on that one.
Absolutely.
Love second shift guys. If I had to work, I would work second shift.
Okay.
And
awesome.
In fact, I've had to work third shift sometimes.
Have you really?
Yeah, because when the operations is a 3-shift operation, well, they don't shut down. And so either I'm on site helping them with a particular issue or topic, or I get a phone call at 2 a.m. It says, hey, we're having this particular issue or whatnot. So now, fortunately, part of what we do helps raise the overall productivity of the plant. Okay. And most of our clients have discontinued third shift and running weekends because they're running so efficiently. So
got it.
We think that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Vince, one of the things, and you've used this word, I've used this word a couple of times in this episode so far. But one of the things that I've started to ask some of my guests is, what does culture mean to you? And I'd love to hear what your take on that is. What does culture mean to Vince Sassano?
To me, culture means that on a scale from I don't matter to matter, it's more over here.
Got it.
We want everybody to get up and show up every day, understanding that they do matter.
Yeah.
And that's right all the way down to the guy at the end of the line. Everybody matters because they all have a part to play, both positive and negative.
Sure.
If they're not doing their thing, well, that affects everybody upstream.
Absolutely.
So that's really our definition of culture is that, and then we go upstream from that. It's not that the people matter solely, because if the people matter, then the meetings matter. And if the meetings matter, then the agenda matters.
Right.
And if the agenda matters, then the data matters. What? Wait a minute. Something's going on here. You
Yeah,
know? There's an
absolutely.
interconnection link going on. And we're like, yes,
Yes.
that's how it works.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. Um, so what's one leadership lesson that you have either learned yourself the hard way or that one of your clients has learned the hard way? And how did it change your approach to business?
I would say the most difficult lesson that I've had to learn is that I cannot care more about a client's productivity and efficiency and their operations more than they do. Yeah, that was a hard lesson for me to learn.
Yeah.
Because I would always want more for them and want better for them, and if they don't want it, they're going to dig their heels in. And here's the really, kind of the dirty little secret on that. There's a lot of things they can't say.
Okay.
Okay, like they can't say, you know what, Vince, I really don't want to run that efficient this week because I'm going on vacation and I really don't want to stockpile of stuff. And you know what? If we accumulate some overtime next week because we got to catch up, I don't really care.
Yeah.
They can't say that.
Nope.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And so I've had to learn to read between the lines and go, okay, great. I will talk to you next month. And at that time, we will address this same issue and we will see, perfect example. I'll give you another perfect example. We had a customer that was using some technology that we had developed many years ago, and it worked great, and it made them a lot of money. The ROI on the project was in the hundreds, like 400 to 1,000% ROI. I mean, it was just a
Wow.
phenomenal project. And then COVID hit. And then their biggest problem on the floor happened to be labor. They couldn't find the
Absolutely.
bodies to be able to get the product out the door. So they didn't really need the technology to help them get stuff out the door faster because they didn't have the people to run the lines to use the technology to run it better. And
Right.
so they stopped using the technology that we had developed for them. And the technology, at the time, the latest and greatest was Windows XP.
Okay.
They remember that. Well,
I
you
do.
also remember now that Windows XP is discontinued.
And for a
Microsoft no longer
reason, right?
supports it. So
Yeah.
they called us this year and they said, hey, we want to do something about getting those things running again that you helped us out with many years ago. And I was like, okay, but you're going to have to upgrade them because those are XP and we need at least Windows 7 or above. And here's the cost. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to do that.
Mm.
And I was dumbfounded. I was just like, really? You spent 3 times that money 7 years ago to do this, and now today you don't want to spend a third of that on
Right.
that? And so I went, okay, and I waited a month. And I called them and I said, how's this thing going? They're like, well, so I waited another month. And I called top guy and I said, all right, you guys are calling me every now and then telling me you need this, but then when I put together a proposal for you, you're kind of hemming and hawing on stuff, okay? I said, let's just start with the bare bones thing.
Yeah.
Do you think they need something? And he said, absolutely. We got to have something. But we can't do the latest and greatest of what we used to have because we just don't want to spend the money. And we don't need it for all the lines anymore. We only want it for like 4 lines. They had this technology on like 13 lines, and it worked great
Wow.
pre-COVID. But now in
Yeah.
post-COVID, we're in a different environment, and so they don't need that on all the lines anymore. And I says, okay, you only need it for these 4 lines. I says, all right, let me see what we can do to put together something that did part of what that did, and then it's also going to do some other things that other stuff did. And I think we can do that for less money.
Okay.
And the reason is because we're going to rely more on the technology and less on the people. And that's where the
Okay.
cost savings kind of comes into play. So that was a situation where I had to kind of step back a little bit and just kind of let things kind of pan out there, because if they don't care, I don't care.
Yeah.
But they do. They just didn't care as much.
Sure.
They didn't
Absolutely.
care as much. So But when they see what we do for them, which will be, we installed phase 1 last week and they love it. We're going to be installing phase 2 in another week. They're going to love that. And then they're going to do the, wow, I could have had a V8. Why didn't we do this last year? And I'm going to be like, I don't know. I thought you were still using the other stuff. You didn't tell me you decommissioned that stuff. Well, we didn't really decommissioned it. We just kind of took it down and then didn't use it. Okay. What's the difference between that and decommission? Well, we didn't tell you. I'm like, okay, it's your business, Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. And the funny thing is they're actually using this in some of their other plants, and the other plants never stopped using it. Okay. Oh, wow. The other plants were still using it. But the other plant's version was Windows 7 and above. It wasn't XP. So got it. That's kind of why there's a little bit of a hybrid thing. But that was, that's a little long version of the big lesson, was, you have to let the customer take their own lead on what they want and when they want it. All we can do is say, this is what's possible and this is what we can provide and this is what it costs. Do you want to do it, yes or no? And that's pretty much it.
Love it. Vince, as you look back on this journey, this storied career of yours, what's an accomplishment or something that you've done that you're most proud of?
What we're most proud of is that we've been able to come up with what we know is the most effective and cost economical downtime tracking system that's out there. Okay. And it's got a lot of moving parts to it, but it covers all of the operational and the culture issues, utilizing the most of technology without without using too much technology.
Sure.
Okay. A lot of people think you need to have tablets walking around the floor and people with the Back to the Future helmets walking around and automatically zapping things back to each other. And no, that's not what you need. What you need is just clear and concise communication. I'll give you an example. This project that we're working on for the customer where they're upgrading some of their real-time data collection stuff. Yeah. The plant manager wants me to add to that fancy stuff light stacks.
Really?
Because he wants to walk the floor and he wants to see red, yellow, green. Okay. And I said, we can do that.
Absolutely.
Fine. You want, I could give it to you on your phone. I can give it to you on a tablet. I could send you an email, but that's not what you want. What you want is a light stack.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, we can do that. So understanding not only what the customer needs, but what the customer can handle, and then finding technology that fits into that is going to be far more effective than kind of coming in with an attitude of, well, we know what's best for you, and this is what you got to do. And, you got to get tablets for all your people, and you got to get them more technologically savvy, so they need to go to a course and all that kind of stuff. We're like, no. What we're most proud of is that we help people take what they got and make it better. And we do that for a lot less than you might think.
Awesome. Just trying to wrap up. Second to last question here. What advice would you give to somebody just starting out in their career in manufacturing? Is there something that you wish you had known early on, a piece of wisdom or a piece of advice, and what would that be for the younger generation?
I would say don't be afraid to try to understand what are the problems that are preventing things from running better. Doesn't matter at what level you're at. Doesn't matter if you're in maintenance or ops. There has been, through the years, kind of an awakening where the people are getting younger and the demographics getting younger and they're more technologically savvy. And, they're like, well, why don't you do things this way? Why don't you do things that way? And I was hoping that earlier in the decades that have gone by, that would have kind of progressed a little bit sooner. Sure. Because there's a little bit of a fear factor there. It's a little bit of the lunch pail mentality. Go in, keep your head down, do your job, and leave. And don't say anything to anybody. Even if you know stuff's wrong, don't say anything because you could get in trouble. That's a really big byproduct of MBWA. If you point out a problem, so okay, well then you got to fix it. It's like, well, I don't know how to fix it. I'm just telling you what the problem is. I'm not a mechanic. I don't know what to do. And you get slapped on the nose enough times, you're just going to learn to shut up. Yeah. And my encouragement would be, you don't have to shut up, but keep collecting the information, because
Mm,
eventually, at some point in time, somebody's going to listen, and you're going to say the right thing in the meeting at the right time, and then the change will start to take on a life of its own. So don't be afraid to at least collect the information, and then when you do get an opportunity to talk to your supervisor, or talk to one of the managers or one of the people that are in corporate, and just say, hey, I've had an idea on how I think we could solve this particular problem, and here's my solution for it. I guess that's the other thing, is that if you see the problem and you present a solution at the same time as the problem, the problem will be better received
awesome.
than if
Yeah.
you just present the problem and then what do we do about it? I don't know. Even if your idea is wrong or bad, at least you try.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, if I'm way down on the line and I say, here's the problem I see and here's my solution, the person up line who sees this might go, yeah, that's great, but you may not know that's going to cause a safety issue for that guy 2 machines up. And so I appreciate your input. Let's find a better way to solve this problem than what you said, because I don't expect you to understand how the entire line works, soup to nuts. Because if you do that, well, then you'd be in maintenance. Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's a different story, you know? So,
Absolutely. Vince, last question. Question I ask all of my guests at the end of the show. Um, what haven't I asked you that you want to share with the audience?
uh, I think we've pretty much covered it. I guess the biggest thing that you haven't asked me is, uh, you know, where do your listeners go from here? What do they
Okay.
do next? So, okay, we've heard this gentleman talk a lot about a lot of things. Where's the whiffle? Like,
Yeah,
what can he do? And I guess the biggest thing that I can say is to just start an open and honest conversation about, what you think is necessary, or where you're having some problems or some challenges, or if you just want another opinion or somebody's brain to pick. Hey, a year from now, we've been thinking about doing this. Can you tell me why we should and why we shouldn't? Again, that's one of the luxuries of having 30 years of experience, is that we have a lot to draw on, and just share with your listeners. Don't be afraid to ask. I mean,
I love it.
send you an email, send me an email, and we'd be more than happy to talk about this. I mean, again, we're talking at FabTech, we're talking at the Assembly Show the week after that. We've got some articles coming out in Industry Week about pay for performance.
Awesome.
We've got some other podcasts that are out there now, including yours. Thank you, and
Yeah.
thank you for reminding me that we're going to do another one. Uh, I was like, oh, we are? Okay, I guess we're diving deeper. Because Jim says we got to talk about this one. So,
Well, that's where we're going to talk about the solution itself. We're going to dive in. You're going to do a demo. You're going to talk about some case studies a little bit more in depth. We're going to talk
mhm.
about the solution. This was the story of Vince. That's the story of your organization and Randy and the problems you guys solve. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Great, great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And congratulations on your growth and what you're doing for the industry.
Thank you.
People like you are sorely needed to really help accelerate the conversation, because it's very hard for people to find people, and you being a connector and being able to help people do that faster is a really good service to the industry. So we thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Vince. I appreciate that, and I really appreciate you being on today, my friend. Like I said, the you and I have had three, maybe four conversations, and I always walk away with cramps in my cheeks and a sore side and a dry mouth from laughing and not drinking enough water. So I had two waters in with me today. So I really appreciate, Vince, you being here today and sharing your story. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, if you enjoyed today's episode, check out the MFG Connector for more insights and resources. That's themfgconnector.com. You can also stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest updates and episodes. And also, like we were talking about, don't forget, if you like solutions that can transform your business, check out our other show. Vince will be on it We've had some awesome guests on it so far. The Manufacturing Connector on YouTube. If you love innovative tech, novel solutions, problem solving, then that's really the show for you. Before you go, I'd love for you to share this episode with your friends and colleagues. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to rate and review the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on right now. Not only does it help us grow, it really helps us reach more people because every time you rate and review the show, it rockets us up the charts for some reason. I maybe Vince can tell us in our next episode what the algorithm is that makes people rating and reviewing this show reach more people, but I don't know what that is. Folks, thanks again for tuning in to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Until next time, keep building strong cultures, keep learning, and please, please, please keep telling your story. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Thank you.